Hi, I'm Sebastian. Today I'm going to talk about a problem that is growing at a very fast rate here in the United States. That's PTSD in our soldiers and troops. Every single day they pay the ultimate sacrifice when they get up and they leave their families for months on end with very little communication. Every single day they fight life or death, tooth and nail, with very undesirable living conditions and food choices. You're probably wondering, what is PTSD? PTSD is post-traumatic stress disorder. It's a disorder in which the brain is trapped in this fight or flight state that has been triggered by a traumatic experience from before, usually life or death. This can be found in any kind of human, but it's just most commonly known in soldiers because every single day is life or death for them overseas. For example, Dexter Pitts is a very prime example of somebody who's suffering from PTSD. Dexter Pitts was a 19-year-old serving in 2004 in his first tour overseas. He was driving in Baghdad when he ran over an IED and blew himself up. Next thing he knew, he was waking up in a hospital room back in the US. When he woke up, his cousin was there, and he stayed there for a couple weeks. But as the weeks grew on, he began to get annoyed with his cousin. His cousin kept poking at him and aggravating him, and accidentally hit his right arm, and he didn't take it too kindly. He chased him down the hallway of the hospital before grabbing him and punching him repeatedly as hard as he could in the chest. He realized in this moment that he seriously needed help. He knew since he had gotten home and woke up in the hospital bed that something wasn't right, not only physically, but mentally as well. He just didn't want to accept this reality because he said being in the military put him on this pedestal that he was some superhero, and he just couldn't adjust to being stuck in this bed and stuck back to reality from this incident. Now you're probably wondering, why is it important that we treat this PTSD disorder? And it's because if we don't, then the soldiers can't adjust when they come back to home to civilian life, and they can't get a real job or keep a real job, and that leads to them not having enough income to pay for houses or food, or support family, which ultimately leads to them becoming homeless. And that's why, even though not a lot of people go into the military and become veterans, 11% of all homeless people were veterans at some point. And of that 11%, only 9% are females. So that leads to a lot of homeless veteran males on the streets. Now we can help by providing an ear to them and just listening to them and caring for them and letting them know they have a safe space to talk with us. We also need to build them up and not let them feel like they're down or they're less than what they really are. Because without them, we wouldn't be able to have the freedoms that we have from their sacrifices. Now, they need to do their part in taking care of themselves by exercising. They need to exercise a minimum of 45 minutes to an hour a day, because that releases all this adrenaline that's built up that they're not getting out, and releases endorphins that alleviate stress, anxiety, depression, and just ultimately improves the quality of life for them. Sleep is also another very important thing they need to get. They need to get about 9 hours of sleep at night, and that just helps rest the body of aches and pains and clears your mind at night. Support groups is another way they can do that if they don't want to listen to us, because we're not soldiers and we don't know what they're going through. They can go to support groups with other soldiers, and they can just talk to each other and let them know each other's stories and just ultimately see how that helps them. They need to avoid a substance use of drugs and alcohol of any kind, absolutely, positively, with no excuses. Because when you're taking these substances and drinking alcohol, it creates these up and down roller coasters of emotions that lead to anxiety, depression, and sometimes suicide in some cases. In some cases, it gets so bad where they can finally notice that they need medical attention. They go to the doctor, and the doctor can prescribe them with sleeping pills or anxiety pills that ultimately help them to alleviate some of that stress and hopefully open up and cope with it. This isn't something that can be cured. You can only manage it, which is what we need to help try to do. And here's how doctors tell them, which some cases they can allow patients to be able to use these substances. They look and see if there's any of these experiences like Mr. Pitts, in which they have something severe happen and they just totally flip out. Or if they become very distant from family members or friends that may taught overseas, or just a bad experience in general. Also, negative changes in mood in which they just are really down about themselves, always talk about down about themselves, and think they're less than what they really are. And they also may be on guard all the time, just walking around and pacing and looking to see if there's any dangers nearby. These are all ways to be able to tell if any of your loved ones are maybe struggling with PTSD and get them help before it's too late. This is something that we should all take seriously, because without our soldiers, we will not be able to have the freedoms that we have today. It doesn't take much to change this at all, but a little change will make a big difference in our troops and their well-being.